Thank you, Derek. I'm not sure I fall in the entertaining category. I do know it's going to be a good and lucky day. They say if a bird craps on you, it's good luck. I came to my car this morning and it must have sat under a tree with 1,000 birds on it because it looked like a wicked camper by the time I got to it. It was unbelievable. So it's going to be a good day, I can see that. I have moved to London about 5 or 6 months ago. Sydney has been home for me. It's not good when I see weather like this when you come back here visiting, I can tell you. Not good at all. But I guess when I got back here, which was just last week, some consistency. I know we're in a place of change, but there's some consistency. The New South Wales government is still well and truly on the nose. The federal government is on the nose. The NRL league players, they're behaving themselves well. And the banks have just come out of their Royal Commission and have some brand challenges, I think, for the future. So for the CMOs or ad agencies in the room who work around those four organisations, I wish you well over the coming period. That could be some challenging times for those brands. So here we go. Let's start with just a sort of a sideline. And this is the question I get from a lot of Australians is Brexit. What's happening with Brexit? I can tell you on behalf of London, not so much England, but London, they have no idea. It's a subject that the Londoners don't want to speak about. It's a decision that just went one way that they didn't see coming. I think if you ask people outside of London, you get a different story. But it's a real unknown there. And how it's going to impact the media and marketing scene, no one really knows. I did have a chat to a colleague from JLR, Jaguar Land Rover, who has been working in England for a long time. He has a very clear perspective on what the impact of Brexit will be, and that may come up in a panel session. But I can tell you how that's going to impact media and marketing will be an interesting play. I did attend the MediaTel session, the Future of Brands in London, a few weeks ago. Terrific day, and I may as well have been sitting in Sydney, to be honest with you. The opportunities, the challenges, the issues, absolutely consistent with this country, and I'm sure we're in for a cracking day. So the other part that I probably want to just encourage everyone, pulling yourself out of the office, it's probably like me, it's not easy. It's a struggle to get away and extract yourself out of the office, get away from the emails, phone calls, meetings, etc. But these days are important. There's always some highs, there's always some midpoints, and there's a couple of lows occasionally. But it does get you thinking, and I guess that's what we've got to try and encourage everyone to do, to just start thinking of the big picture and the strategic issues. And what I find myself doing, and I'm sure you do as well, you start thinking about the things you should be doing, the things you shouldn't be doing, and maybe some of the things that you would change. And for that reason alone, these sessions are always really positive. I think the other part of it is this room are the custodians of brands for the future, and I dare say our employment has something to do with that. So stay at it and keep doing a good job. Let me set up the framework for some of my comments by just running a short ad reel just to start with from years gone by. So Aaron, if you can just kick off the first ad reel.
Straight from rubbish tip to you.
Now, Mr. Sheen, my Mr. Sheen, is there anything at all you cannot clean?
Fluoride and Fluorogard gets into the enamel like liquid gets into this chalk.
Ooh, it does get in.
Cola has a beautiful taste.
A hard-earned thirst needs a big cold beer. And the best cold beer is Bic.
No battery lasts longer than Energizer. Oi!
The correct, the correct,
My dad picks the fruit, the guns and 20s, to make a cordial. But I like this.
Well, if we're going to make a party of it, let's nibble Nobby's nuts.
That's not how you make potties.
Mum's doing a lamb roast.
Oh, great, yeah.
I want a packet of Tim Tams that never runs out.
One day you're gonna get caught.
G-O-G-G-O.
Bugger.
Bugger.
Not happy, Jan!
did they build the Great Wall of China?
Saya cinta kamu.
Saya cinta kamu, you too.
I think for any of those that grew up in the 70s and 80s, and there's not enough senior citizens in this room, I'm sorry to say, a lot of those ads were absolutely iconic ads. They do fall in the category of classic. Just sensational. Those brands, VB, Vegemite, Energizer, Tim Tam, Toyota, all those sorts of brands have absolutely stood the test of time and will continue to. And the survival of those brands, it's no easy feat. And certainly, particularly from the consumer packaged goods industry, it is a tough, thousands of products, thousands of different brands. Surviving for 10, 20, 30 plus years is a feat in itself, and clearly survival of brands does relate to the industry sector you play in. It was interesting that the Decore ad, I was trying to work out whether or not that product is actually still sold. I remember buying it when the ads came out. A guy called John Nankervis was the creative director behind that one, so I played some golf with him and he told me about it. But I was trying to work out whether or not that product was still available, and I did 3 minutes of some serious desk research, as we do, and one of the links was to a Vogue blog. So I went to the blog, and in July 2007, someone had the same question, and the lady asked, "Does anyone know if the Decore range of shampoo and conditioners have been discontinued? My mum uses it, and it's the only thing that doesn't cause allergies and other problems with her hair. Is it available anywhere?" I need to tell you there was no response, and so I don't know whether Decore is still available. It did go to #1 shampoo within months of that campaign, and like a lot of FMCG products though, it's a tough game to stay relevant and stay unique in its positioning. I don't think it's around. If someone has an answer for that, yell it out. But to still see these brands, as I said, is really quite remarkable. It's tough to keep them front and centre, but the ability to ruin a brand is pretty easy. There is a lot of marketing and media levers you can use to actually really disturb a brand's health. I've actually played with those levers before, and it's a very uncomfortable sort of process. The only thing you keep telling yourself was that was a good experience and I'm going to learn from that process. And I hope that's the case with a lot of you here. And it was interesting, at the Future of Brands event in London a few weeks ago, there was a panel session. And what I really liked is the person who was facilitating the panel actually asked the panellists not what was one of your great success stories. They actually said, what did you screw up? And I thought it was a really good question, and because it was really enlightening to hear where those individuals made errors, because that's probably where the greatest learnings are from. And so most of them bared their soul and talked about the stuff-ups they'd made. And I actually thought it was really encouraging, I think, for all of us, when we saw a big powerhouse marketing brand like P&G come out last year and declare that they got it wrong with their media allocation. They actually shifted too much money into certain channels in the digital area. That's a sort of a very healthy approach to marketing and activity, and we want to see more brands like that come out and talk about learnings so everyone can benefit from the whole process. So, to the topic on the future of brands, I'm going to raise just a few more thoughts on the way through here, just to kickstart the thinking. None of them are revolutionary, I think that's fair to say, but just reinforcement of some principles. I think for me, the critical elements of marketing are the same today as they were when I started as a young boy in shorts and long socks. A product or a service that delivers on its promise to the consumer or customer. A product or a service that has a unique service proposition. It's differentiated in some capacity. It represents value. It's not necessarily cheap or low cost, but it represents value to the consumer. And last but not least, it actually connects with the consumer in some way. Now, we're going to talk about that in a little bit further, but It's a big room here, people have pads and everything else, so I dare say a number of you are playing marketing media bullshit bingo. So I want to get you started quickly on that process. So here we go. Complexity, change management, accountability, ROI, transparency, in-housing, outsourcing, full service, effectiveness, efficiency, programmatic, big data, trust, AI, top of the funnel. How do we go? We've got those ticked off. You'll hear all those words throughout the day. I'm absolutely certain of it. They're common themes whichever market you go to around the world, I can tell you. So when I started the product marketing game, it was known as the 4 Ps of marketing: product, place, price and promotion. I was informed a few years ago by my very wise son who had just graduated from marketing that I was old school, and it was now 6 Ps. The world had moved on, and there was now something called performance, which related to business objectives, and something called people, which related to future and current customers, attaining and acquiring them. I've now had the pleasure of going back to him during my 3 minutes of desk research, telling him that there's now 7, 8, 9 and now 11 Ps of marketing. So the world is moving on. I think the basics are still there. I did ask some of the smarter minds at Ebiquity back in London some thoughts around marketing and branding, and I just wanted to give you their perspectives, and there was 4 of them, on the issues around brands and marketing. The first person made this comment: provide a product and or service which will make them like you, make them trust you, make them choose you, make them recommend you. Don't expect them to love you. The second comment: many CMOs don't stay long in their jobs, and that often it is their agency partners, both creative and media, that actually have the real depth of understanding of the brands. Building great brands is therefore often a partnership between the client and their agencies. I think that's a really interesting perspective. Third one: focus ruthlessly on driving business outcomes, aligning your partners around business outcomes and measuring those in a way that reflects the real value of your marketing activities and investments that balance both short-term and long-term. And lastly, last comment by someone: it's never been more important to measure the effects of investments. Brands need empirical evidence of what works and why in order to grow investment and to deliver growth. I want to pick up on those last couple of comments. The importance of measuring business outcomes and marketing effectiveness over the short and long term. I mean, it goes without saying we have an incredibly challenging marketing and media environment. Far more challenging, far more complex than in my day when I was a product manager. But we have more access to data and sources of information than we've ever had. It's just, in actual fact, there's probably too much information. The critical piece is making sure you get the right information. But I think the key is here, we do have the information at our fingertips to get hold of to find out what's working and what's not. And let me just quote someone: Keith Weed, the CMO for Unilever, who was Global Marketer of the Year in 2017, he summed it up well. He said, measure what you treasure. And I grew up with a mantra which was, you can't manage what you don't measure. And that is a really, really important message. I do applaud the advertisers and marketers that are pushing this area and constantly looking at what's driving effectiveness and business outcomes, but my comment would be there's not enough of them. Insert brand name here. Ebiquity happens to play in this space, in the marketing, analytics and effectiveness area. Some selfless self-promotion there. But we do have to measure the outcomes. We've got to be more focused on business outcomes and measuring those outcomes. I was involved in Think TV's research study. It was a major piece of work. It was across 21 major brands in this country, looking at over 3 years of data across 4 industry sectors and looking at the return on investment of the media channels. And it's those types of research studies and work that really help brands make informed decisions. And again, I sort of encourage industry bodies and I encourage the marketers as well to continue investing in this area. So, before I finish, let me play another ad reel from the drinks industry as they're known. When I was a little kid, it was called the alcohol industry. It's known as the drinks industry now. that also reinforce a couple of really important messages. The first one, and I think a lot of us work in data a lot, but the first one is the importance of the creative. I can tell you in our analytics group, we have about 65, 70 rocket scientists in London that do a lot of analytics and econometrics work. They will tell you that the creative messaging and seeing where it changes and what creative is being used in what channel is a critical piece of the marketing and media lever. So that will come through. And the second one is look for the Reshes ad in here. It's a really interesting comment it's making. It's talking about don't get fooled by great colourful advertising and fancy jingles, and this is from a beer ad. But it talks to a critical point, and it says it is about the product quality at the end of the day. It's about the taste. It's about, that's what the thing that'll keep the product coming back. And if you look at even the ad, I don't know whether they've changed their label too much over the years. It still looks like the same Reshes Pilsner I occasionally buy. So let's play the last reel.
First needs a big cold beer. And the best cold beer is Vic, a long cold Vic. It can come at any time. You're into the plough or up in a bow. Matter of fact, I've got it now.
When you're ready to share more than a sunny day, UDL is ready for you.
When you're ready to share more than pop concerts, UDL is ready for you.
How do you feel? How do you feel?
I feel like a twist. I feel like a twist.
Lindeman's, traditional winemaking for the happiness of man.
Tia Maria, gold and brown, drink it when the sun goes down. Tia Maria.
Belch a beer down, y'all, with your mates. Knock it back, son, appreciate.
It isn't the advertising that makes you drink it. It's the taste, clean and crisp, with a hint of hops. It's called Reshes Pilsner.
There's no better place to be exactly who you are. Drop by sometime. Jack lives here.
The head. What? Oh, the head?
Yeah.
Classic.
You know my picking ability is independent of my height.
Of course it is. You're a good picker. Just happen to be a giraffe.
Well, maybe you should try picking potatoes.
Strongbow, hand-picked by hand.
I still think the drinks industry still do some of the best advertising. A lot of it we don't see on mainstream TV or radio and print, but some of their online digital work is fantastic. So let me wrap up. The future of brands will continue to rely on the critical skills and execution of the 4 Ps, 6 Ps, 7 Ps, whatever it is. Basically, the main building blocks of marketing. I don't think we're going to forget those. And today's seminar will look at the various challenges of our marketing and media world, as always. And the success is balancing the art and the science. Now, from someone who has spent 30 years working with marketing and media information, I again encourage everyone to be more rigorous with measuring business outcomes, the science. But please, don't forget the wonderful art of judgment based on your own experiences of success and failures. Enjoy the day. Thank you.